You know that feeling? You leave a conversation and immediately you think, I knew better. I should have said it. I should have said this and that. And then you keep replaying the conversation long before it's gone. Long after it's gone, actually. And I know this situation intimately. I used to leave conversations, calls, meetings, thinking these annoying thoughts. It's so frustrating to keep replaying conversations and figuring out scenarios, how it could have gone differently, how I could have spoken up, how I could have shown up more powerful and clear and confident, and not having the chance to do it over. I will not sit here and say, oh, it never happens anymore. But the truth is, the difference between the girl I used to be, the one who would feel that knot in her stomach and a restriction in her throat, and would rather leave feeling safe than bet on herself, and the anchored woman that I feel today, when I can speak up, show up, and have the difficult conversations. That's the difference that I want to talk to you about today. Because there's a way to go about it. It's not a miracle that I've changed over time, and it hasn't happened on its own. And I don't believe that it would happen on its own. Because there is a development and progress that can happen in life over time with wisdom and experience. And also, we can be repeating the same mistakes for decades. So if you want to accelerate the progress on your outgrowing the good girl identity journey, then this is the video for you to become the anchored woman who feels steady and brave, to bet on herself, especially when the stakes are high. When you tend to shrink a little bit or have that sense of contraction in your body, it is like you restrict yourself in the moment when it feels like pressure is rising. Maybe a decision is being made that feels very important, that maybe that your career depends on. Or it feels like the win is so close and you don't want to mess it up now. So in your mind, you put this pressure on and you restrict yourself because it feels like, oh, I can either win it or blow it now. What happens is in that tension, you lose the authenticity, you lose the energy. It's almost like the whole time before, there were these massive lights shining your way. You're shining and you're radiant and you're confident and you know what to say. Or you just say the right things and everything flows. And suddenly you decide, because of all the fear, because of all the insecurity or thoughts of judgment in your mind, you dim the lights. It doesn't feel good for you. And guess what? When you are presenting, speaking, or in any position of power, the way you feel translates onto how other people feel. It's a big part of responsibility that isn't often talked about when being a leader. But that power, that sense of sovereignty, that's a topic for another time. Today, we talk about that moment when you restrict yourself. And I want to be very clear about this. This doesn't happen because you didn't prepare enough, at least not to the women I work with. They are usually high achievers, they're very functioning, they are smart. So they theoretically and logically absolutely know what to do and know what to say in the right moment when they're in a state of calm. But what happens, it's not a lack of confidence, it's not a lack of competence, it's not a lack of preparation. It's the fact that we negotiate in our mind. That self-doubt, that voice that starts thinking more about how the other side perceives me. What will they say? That takes you out of that present moment. That takes you out of being centered and steady and feeling expansive and good. What happens is that self-negotiation, and we very often negotiate ourselves down. And that's when we feel after the conversation like, I'm not proud of myself. I didn't do a good enough job. I knew better. And this feeling sucks. When I say we negotiate within ourselves, how can it be? Is that you, as one being, consist out of many parts. There's a part of you that knows exactly what to say. There's a part of you that knows how to show up confidently. There's a part of you that doubts yourself. All of this is true at the same time. And what happens in these moments is that there's a part of you that has the thought, you know what to say, you want to speak up. Maybe there's a conflict, maybe there's pressure going on, maybe there's tension, and you want to say something, but you don't want to be over the top. You don't want to be judged as hysterical or difficult or too much, overbearing, domineering, all of these lovely things, let alone, God forbid, aggressive. And because you don't want to be that, fear of all of this judgment and fear of this rejection from the other side just shuts you down. You shut yourself down rather than risking it. So the negotiation is between the part of you that wants to feel safe, which is the primary function of your subconscious mind. It will always be there. And the other part that is steady, brave, saying it like it is, saying the brave ideas maybe, or the slightly challenging or confronting, or the radically honest. This self-censorship and inner negotiation obviously comes at a cost. Not only it costs you energy, because there's energy that we spend on the talk in the background, and there's energy that we spend hiding these parts of ourselves, trying to look a certain way, trying to perform the way that is the most acceptable in any room that you find yourself in at that moment. Of course, it costs you influence, because that naturally comes to people who don't mind speaking up. The cost is you simply don't get what you want, because you can't get it if you don't ask, often. And the biggest cost that I see that, again, isn't spoken about enough because it's more hidden, is that you're losing bit by bit that self-respect, that self-trust, that you can hold the pressure, that you can say what you mean and say what you want and survive and stay safe. And this is how we become smaller and smaller in our world. It's surprising to many that it happens to women who are outwardly successful. They are aspiring leaders, or they are leaders in their companies, or they are founders of their own company. We get to that certain level of success thanks to being able to please others. Because you fulfill the expectation, you over-deliver, you're ticking all the boxes. And then on a certain level, you can stay stuck. How do I rise even more? Because when you want to get to that next level of leadership, whether it is in your own company, in your life, or within your organization, you need to start having more and more difficult conversations. More challenging, more confronting, and even make unpopular decisions. And this is a completely different skill set. Now that you know that this way of working and this way of functioning costs you energy, it costs you influence, it costs you potentially your career or money that you could make, or a sense of feeling good about yourself and feeling proud about yourself, the question is simple. What to do about it? The answer comes in 3 steps. The first is, in that moment when you shrink under pressure, to learn to stay steady and brave. And how you do it is that you build capacity to withstand that pressure, to withstand the rejection or the possible judgment, to tolerate discomfort. And you can do this. This is completely possible to learn to grow this capacity for you so that you experience the situation differently. Once you experience the situation differently, you experience yourself in it differently. You are suddenly open to other possible scenarios. Suddenly it's available to you to speak up. Suddenly it's available to you quite naturally and quite easily to start building that self-trust again bit by bit. Rather than shrinking it, you keep building it through experience. And that's something that can never be taken away from you. So then you're feeling steady and brave, and you're building your own self-trust. This is what I call being anchored in who you are, what you want, and what you're going to do about it. That leads or equates to that feeling of alignment or sovereignty. Every real transformation is the change of behavior. So that translates into clear boundaries, clear communication, clear expectation, clear owning responsibility for you, for your life, for your behavior, all the good and bad. And that feels so empowering. That's the next level. And there's always a next level, and there's always a next level, yes. But on every level, what you're doing is you're peeling off more and more layers of that good girl conditioning, of that good girl identity, of that need to please, of that need to be liked. You can become more and more of the anchored woman, anchored within yourself. But if there's one thing I want you to remember today, is that your hesitation in the moments that matter, in that conflict, in that high-stake conversation, are not due to your lack of confidence nor competency. They're only a product of your natural desire to be liked, validated, the need to belong. So there's nothing to judge, nothing wrong with you. There's something to outgrow and take a different approach. The more you can hold capacity for discomfort, the more doors open up for you.